Alrighty, La Mesa, Phoenix, Arizona. That's where we're at. I'm driving the Chateau. Dawn's driving the ARC van that's up there, and we're making delivery with the ARC van here. So, and then mine's got to go to La Mesa and Tucson. So that's where we're going to head to next. But just wanted to touch base on a couple things. A couple people have asked how much do you make and those type of questions, and I cover money in 1 out of 8 of my videos probably. So we're going to cover it a little bit different this round. Now the title of this one says money, how much you make, and then there's another question in reference to how much you make compared to drive-away compared to tow-away. Okay, and all my calculations, I'll tell you right now, the bottom line, the bottom figure, if you was to take a tow-away at $1.50 and a drive-away at 94 cents, you are looking at a difference of right about making money of your take-home being somewhere around a 25% increase between drive-away and tow-away. So it is well worth getting the truck and doing tow-away. But you do have a lot more maintenance, and you do have a lot more capabilities also. So it's got both pluses there. Now, let me check something here. Make sure I'm still recording. Yep, I'm still recording. Sorry, I touched the screen. I wasn't sure I cut it off or not. So here's where we're at on the factors of making money. And we are. How do I want to put this? Drive-away is going to be somewhere between 90 cents and $1.20 take out of the yard. On your return routes, it will be anywhere from 70 cents to $1.24. So that's what you're looking at there. As far as the drive-away. Hello. So your return routes do have some money, and then some of them don't. Okay? Some of them you're just making enough money to literally cover the factor of your mileage and gas. And that's it. When it comes down to doing the tow-away, your bottom figures I've seen in the out of yards are usually about, I think I've seen $1.45 a few times, but usually it's around $1.50 is your lowest figure. Usually $1.55 is what I see most of all. So that's your lowest figure there, and it goes up to as high as I've seen $2.30 on the out of the yard. Now, as far as the return routes, I couldn't tell you. I really haven't paid attention to the return routes to know exactly what kind of cost there is there. But so that gives you what the load figure is. If you was to figure that you're going to make 60% of that is your take home, 40% goes to the expense of fuel going into these guys for drive-away, fuel and oil and maintenance to your truck is around 40%. So hence, if you calculate that, you'll be good. That 40% for fuel into these also covers the fuel going into Lucid Blue, the car that we have tow away and we drive back with. So hence, that's where that goes. That's where that calculation's at. So that gives you an idea of what you're going to be looking at per mile of making. Now, it depends on who you ask in this business, because you'll have one person that will come across and tell you they make 65 cents a mile. Okay? You'll have another person to tell you they make $8,000 a month. And you'll have another person that says, I claim $140,000 on my taxes. So you got everybody's saying how they make money, but nobody calculates the same way. But if you want to know the dollar figure to the mile, that's what you're looking at. The key question is making the miles to make what you need to make. So let's say you need to make $5,000. Let me back up. How I usually tell a lot of people when I see them in the lounge or in the yard or out and about, I always tell people, calculate 50% is what you're going to make, okay? And if you do that, then you should be doing good. The average on drive-away is $1 a mile. The average on tow-away, I think, is $1.75, $1.73, something like that a mile. 50% is what you're going to make. So I'm going to just use drive-away since it's so easy at $1, 50 cents a mile. If you need to make $5,000 a month for your payments of everything that you have at home and your living expense, then you can figure that you need to drive 10,000 miles in a month. And that's not 10,000 miles drive out and come back. That's 10,000 miles of rolling delivery miles. Okay, that means you're rolling with a delivery. And what I want to point out is, let's say this one right here. Go to make this, let's say $1 a mile. So that's 1,800 miles here. That means it's going to make $1,800. Okay, let's say it takes 4 days to make that delivery. That's $1,800 in 4 days, minus the 1/3 minimum going towards fuel. So let's say minus 600. Now that means that you're going to make 1,200. Okay, and yes, I said 60%. So just note that's where you can base it really off of. But $1,200, that's for 4 days. But if you was to leave here and it takes you 2 days to get back, that's $1,200 for 6 days. If when you get back you pity around the lounge or do paperwork and things like that and add an extra day, now you're up to 7 days. That's $1,200, 7 days. And note how that works, okay? Now, where I came across and said if you calculate 60%, let's back up to that. Where I said you calculate 60% is what you will usually take home, and 40% goes to your expenses. Doing this, that means that you will run into things that need fuel, maintenance on a truck, whatever it may be. That's where all that 40%'s at. But note how this is calculated. Also is by how well you drive and speed. So if you was to say 1,800 miles, you figure the company's policy is 65 miles an hour. I want to throw that out there. So the numbers I give you will be what it is outside of that. All right. Let's say you drove 65 miles an hour to here. Your actual average speed is between 53 and 55 miles per hour. That includes your stop and goes, you're getting your brake, that means your potty breaks, that means whatever it is that you have to do in that drive day. So that's what your average is. And Garmin's are really good to give you that drive average, what you did that day. So you'll know, stopped here, waiting on my wife's unit getting checked in. That's all part of the drive time, drive average. So yeah. With that being said, that's what you run into is 53 to 55 miles is your average day. That means that you're going to make about 500 miles in a day. That means it's going to take you 3 days minimum to get here. Okay? With a 4th day on delivery or 4th day of traveling and 5th day delivery. Depends on how you travel. Okay? So that's where you can throw your equation at. Now, there's some people out there that says, man, I drive my 75 miles an hour, whatever the speed limit is, that's what I'm hitting. And they're like, they make up their time saying, well, I get there faster. Did you ever take 1,800 miles and divide it by 65? It comes up to 24 hours. I mean, 27.6 hours. If you take 1,800 and divide it by 75, it comes up 24 hours. So you only made 3 hours and a half difference. 3.5 hours difference, that's it. That's all you made up for driving that extra speed. Now, think about this. In the calculations, if you drove that extra speed, you would usually use maybe, let's say, a mile per gallon extra in fuel. Okay, because speed faster, you use more fuel. If you was to take, like this thing here, 9 miles to the gallon versus 8 miles to the gallon. 1,800 miles. Divide it by 8, divide it by 9, and you come up with a difference of around 57 gallons. 57 gallons, times that by $3, average cost of fuel, that's 150 bucks. So you save 3 hours, cost you $150. So what'd you gain? Okay? See, that's what I'm trying to tell people. This whole thing is an equation that you have to know what you do and drive to you. This guy right here, if I set cruise control at 68 miles an hour, she does about 9.4 miles to the gallon. If I set it at 66, she does 8.9. She does less miles per gallon at 66. And as you drop further down, she does even worse. But if you get to 68, she does good. I don't know about 70 because I didn't try it. I just stopped at 68 and said, okay, that's good. That's good. And just to let you know, you set cruise control for 68. My Garmin comes across and shows I'm doing 67 to 66. My Google shows I'm doing 67, and Waze shows I'm doing 66 to 67. So that's where I'm sitting at. And that's good for all the interstates and keeping up with everything. Take consideration that Interstate 44 through Oklahoma is 80 miles an hour with a minimum of 60. So you really don't want to be down there at that bottom either. Okay? Or you don't really want to be at 65 and 64. You want to be up there in that middle point. All right? To be safe with all traffic. So, like I said, the guideline at the beginning was 65. That's what the company's requirements are. That's their guideline. But traveling at the safe zone of what the traffic's doing is better than following that guideline. And I can get in trouble for that. But anyway, so just note that's the way I look at it. And got people racing the engines like they're really into NASCAR here. In an RV. Come on, be real. Some people are jerks. Anyway, that gives you what we're looking at there. So, I'm Tex, DTN Living Life. Peace, love, and jelly beans, people. Like, dislike, like again, and subscribe, and notifications bell. We're here at La Mesa and Phoenix. Y'all be safe out there. Have a good day.